The port city of Aurelia Prime gleamed under the twin suns, its glass towers reflecting light like thousands of tiny stars. Ships of all sizes and shapes floated in the sky, moving smoothly along the guided airways, while the streets below bustled with aliens and humans alike. Traders shouted in multiple languages, merchants displayed sparkling goods from distant worlds, and children ran past with laughter that echoed through the plaza. It was a place where the galaxy met, where diplomacy and commerce intertwined, and where news traveled fast. Captain Elias Rain walked along the main promenade, his hands behind his back, his uniform crisp and neat. He had seen many strange things in his years among the stars, but today felt different. There was an unusual tension in the air. Aliens with elongated limbs and scales shimmered as they spoke in hurried tones. Humans, dressed in simple uniforms, glanced nervously at the sky as if expecting something extraordinary. Elias adjusted the strap of his satchel, which held his communication devices and personal data pad. Every instinct in him told him something big was coming. He reached the observation tower where officials were monitoring incoming ships. Through the wide viewing window, he saw a fleet appearing on the horizon. It was elegant, yet powerful. The ships were sleek and symmetrical, unlike the irregular designs of warships he was accustomed to. They glided through space with precision, a quiet elegance that seemed almost alive. The port's automated alert system flashed with warnings, and the voices of security personnel buzzed through the comm channels. "Is it really them?" one officer whispered. "Confirmed," another replied. "The Queen's ship, and there's another small vessel accompanying her, unidentified." People were pointing skyward, whispering excitedly, their faces a mix of hope and disbelief. When the ships finally entered the atmosphere, the city held its collective breath. The Queen's vessel landed gracefully on the main docking platform, its surface gleaming under the sun's light. The hatch slowly opened, and a figure stepped out. Elia's heart skipped a beat. She was breathtaking. Taller than most humans, with skin that seemed to glow faintly, her hair shimmered like threads of liquid silver. Her eyes were bright and intelligent, carrying a calm strength that demanded attention. But what drew every gaze, especially Elias's, was the figure standing beside her. A human, alive, standing confidently, side by side with the alien princess. The crowd erupted into murmurs. Whispers spread like wildfire. How did a human get here? Why was he with her? Questions filled the air, mingling with the sound of distant alarms and calm chatter. Elias felt a mix of pride and apprehension. He knew the human's story, the journey that had led to this moment, but for everyone else it was a mystery. Elias made his way down the observation tower steps, moving with purpose through the crowd. Security personnel tried to hold back the masses, but curiosity always wins. He pushed past the whispers, past the eager faces, until he reached the platform. There he saw the princess smile at him. It was a small gesture, almost imperceptible, but it carried warmth and recognition. He nodded back. The first few steps were tense. Alien Council members emerged from the ship, their robes flowing, their expressions formal. They regarded the princess and the human with cautious eyes. One of them, a tall figure with jade-colored scales and multiple eyes, stepped forward. "Your Highness," the alien spoke in a melodic tone, "we did not expect your return." "And your companion." He could feel their eyes on him, weighing him, judging the place of a human in a world that had never fully trusted his kind. "Captain Rain," another council member said, his voice cautious, "you are human, and yet you were with our princess in the enemy sector. How did you survive?" "I learned from her and she learned from me. We shared knowledge, strategies, and hope. That is what kept us alive." Yet here was Elias, standing alive, unbroken, a living proof that humans were more than what others assumed. The princess stepped forward, her eyes scanning the crowd. "We return not just as survivors," she said. "We return as allies, as partners. The galaxy is changing, and we must learn to work together." He knew the words were bold, even dangerous, in a world where old prejudices ran deep. Yet they were necessary. Hope needed to be spoken aloud before it could take root. The port's automated systems activated, creating a safe path for the princess and Elias to walk through the crowd. Citizens, both alien and human, began to step aside, allowing the pair to move unhindered. Children peeked from behind their parents' legs, eyes wide with curiosity and admiration. Tradespeople paused their business to watch. For a moment, Aurelia Prime felt as though it were holding its breath, waiting to see what would happen next. As they moved, Elias recalled the months spent in the enemy sector. Harsh terrain, scarce resources, and constant uncertainty. He had learned to navigate alien landscapes, to read behaviors that were foreign to humans, and to survive with ingenuity. Yet he had also learned from the princess. She taught him patience, observation, and the strength of calm determination. Together, they had become more than the sum of their parts. The journey to the city's main council hall was short but symbolic. Every step taken by the princess and her human companion sent a message. Survival, partnership, and mutual respect were possible. Rumors and fears slowly gave way to curiosity and hope. People whispered that perhaps humans could indeed rise to meet the challenges of the wider galaxy, not with brute force, but with courage, intelligence, and heart. Inside the council hall, the air was thick with tension. The walls were adorned with tapestries depicting past victories and histories of various species. The alien council members sat in elevated chairs, their eyes sharp and observant. At the center, the queen awaited her daughter's return, regal and composed, though her eyes betrayed relief and curiosity. "Mother," the princess said, bowing slightly, "I have returned, and I bring with me a companion who has proven invaluable." She gestured toward Elias. "Captain Elias Rain." "Speak." It was clear that not everyone would accept the idea easily. Elias knew that trust had to be earned, not demanded, and yet this was the first step, a visible, undeniable step. The princess stepped closer to her mother. "Mother, the galaxy is changing. We cannot face it divided. Humans have much to offer, and Elias has shown that we can work together." Her voice was calm but firm, echoing throughout the hall. "I ask you to consider not just what we have survived, but what we can achieve together." It was a fragile hope, but a hope nonetheless. Elias felt the weight of that moment. Every glance, every murmur, every expectation rested on him, but instead of fear, he felt determination. He had been prepared for danger, for hardship, for uncertainty. Now he was prepared for something even greater, the chance to show that humans could rise, not just to survive, but to shine. Outside, the suns dipped lower, casting long shadows across the plaza. The citizens of Orlaia Prime watched from afar, their conversations filled with speculation and wonder. Children pointed excitedly, adults whispered with cautious optimism. Word would spread quickly. The queen's daughter had returned, alive and strong, and beside her stood a human who had proven himself worthy of trust. And in that moment, as Elias and the princess prepared to address the council formally, one thing was certain. The galaxy would never look at humans the same way again. The council hall was quiet now, the tension inside thicker than the air outside. The princess, standing beside Elias, had just returned from months lost in the unknown reaches of space. Everyone wanted answers, yet no one could deny the relief and admiration that hung in the room like a gentle glow. The queen, regal and composed, finally broke the silence with measured steps toward the center of the chamber. "You speak of partnership," the queen began, her voice calm yet filled with authority. "And yet you are human. How did a species, often regarded as fragile and unpredictable, survive in the dangers beyond our borders? Each of us brought knowledge the other could not have had. Alone, we might not have survived. Together, we adapted and thrived." The princess added, "Captain Rain saved my life more than once. His insight, his quick thinking, his understanding of creatures and systems unfamiliar to him. He showed that humans can be more capable than we imagined. I am alive because of him." "And yet you were captured by the enemy. How could a human endure such conditions?" "It was trust, more than anything else, that helped us survive." Elias glanced at the princess. She nodded subtly, a silent encouragement to continue. He shifted slightly, recalling the long months they had spent in the sector, now almost like a distant memory, yet vivid in its lessons. "It began in a place no map truly shows," he said. "We were in the border sector, isolated, where supply ships rarely came and communication with the outside world was nearly impossible. The terrain was harsh, filled with strange creatures and unpredictable weather patterns. I had been trained for survival, but it was nothing like this. And the princess, she was learning too, but her knowledge of her world gave us advantage in unexpected ways. She could read signs of danger, predict movement, and plan ahead. I could analyze systems, calculate risks, and find solutions when we had none. She became more confident in her decisions, and I learned patience, understanding, and observation from her. Alone, we might have faltered. Together, we endured storms, navigated treacherous terrain, and found food and water when it seemed impossible. Every day, we reminded each other why survival mattered, not just for ourselves, but for everyone who might depend on us in the future." Understanding another culture, another way of thinking, helped us solve problems. Humans see things differently, sometimes creatively, sometimes boldly. She adapted, and in doing so became stronger. I adapted too. We learned from each other. That is how we survived and returned here safely. She had expected a human to speak of survival in terms of luck or raw instinct. Instead, he spoke of learning, cooperation, and shared purpose. Perhaps there was more to humans than she had assumed. The princess stepped forward again. We were not just surviving. We were planning, observing the sector, seeing what threats existed and what opportunities, and I saw something remarkable. Humans, even those like Elias, are curious, inventive, and persistent. They do not give up easily. That persistence is powerful. We survived because we understood each other and used our skills together. One elder whose scales shimmered like molten gold leaned forward. You speak well, princess, and yet some might fear that humans are unpredictable. How can we trust them in the future? I have learned from your people, and I have worked alongside your daughter. I can show, not just tell, that humans can be trusted partners, and she will attest to it because we have lived it. It was not easy to sway centuries of caution and doubt, but Elias spoke in a way that transcended words. His presence, his confidence, and his calm demeanor told a story of reliability and integrity. The princess touched his arm lightly, a gesture of reassurance. She spoke softly. Captain Rain's knowledge, his decisions, and his courage saved me many times. And I believe it can benefit all of us. We learned to communicate silently, to plan contingencies, and to trust in each other's instincts. That preparation and the ability to think creatively under pressure allowed us to navigate dangers without direct conflict. We relied on intelligence, not force, to survive. Humans had been underestimated for generations, often thought to rely on brute strength or recklessness. Yet here was a human describing calculated strategy, observation, and cooperation. Perhaps there was more to them than the galaxy had assumed. The princess smiled faintly. We saw many worlds, many people, and many challenges. And through it all, we learned that cooperation, patience, and understanding can achieve what brute force cannot. Captain Rain is a living example of that. And so am I. Together, we represent what is possible when humans and aliens work side by side. She had spent her life observing politics, wars, and diplomacy, and yet she had never witnessed a human and an alien truly learning from one another under such conditions. Perhaps, she thought, it was time to reconsider her own assumptions. Outside the council hall, the city continued to hum with life. Citizens and travelers alike watched from the streets, their devices and sensors picking up the event inside. News spread quickly. The Queen's daughter had returned alive, and a human stood beside her. Conversations buzzed with speculation and hope. Could humans truly be partners in a galaxy that had long doubted them? The princess glanced at Elias. You see, she said softly, we can change minds. Not with force, but with example. Not with words alone, but with actions that show who we truly are. Some remained skeptical, bound by tradition and fear. Others leaned forward, intrigued by the promise of partnership and the clear demonstration of human ingenuity and perseverance. The room felt charged with potential, a subtle shift in the galaxy's perception of humanity. The princess stepped closer to her mother. Mother, we have returned not just as survivors, but as ambassadors of what is possible. Humans can rise to meet challenges, to contribute, to shine. Elias has proven this, and I stand with him. Let the Council see that the galaxy can benefit from this partnership. Perhaps it was time to acknowledge the value of humans, not as weak or unpredictable beings, but as capable, inventive, and courageous allies. Elias felt a sense of calm determination. He had survived months in harsh conditions, adapted to a new world, and built a bond of trust with the alien princess. Now he had the chance to show that humanity could rise, not through power or domination, but through cooperation, intelligence, and heart. The council members exchanged final glances before the Queen spoke. We will consider what you have said. Your return is remarkable and your actions are undeniable. But know this, trust must be earned over time through deeds and consistency. Let us see how this partnership develops. As the council session ended, Elias and the princess stepped out onto the balcony overlooking the city. The suns were setting, casting golden light over the spires and towers, illuminating the plaza below. Children waved, traders paused, and travelers gazed upward, inspired by the sight of the human and the princess standing together. The galaxy was vast, uncertain, and full of challenges. But for the first time, Elias felt that humanity had a place, not on the margins, but at the center of possibility. And the princess beside him, alive, strong, and wise, represented the beginning of a new era, one where cooperation, understanding, and courage could redefine what it meant to survive and to thrive. The memory of the hostile sector came back to Elias like a vivid dream, one that he could not escape even in the comfort of Aurelia Prime. The air there had been sharp and metallic, with faint currents of energy that played tricks on the senses. Strange flora glowed faintly in colors he had never seen before, casting shadows that seemed alive. The princess and he had navigated the terrain with care, learning to read the environment as if it were a living map. Every step had demanded attention, every decision could determine their survival. It had started the moment they were stranded. The communication link with their fleet had failed during a skirmish with an unknown faction. Elias had assumed the worst for months, thinking the mission was lost. Yet when he opened his eyes in the alien camp, he found the princess not defeated, but determined. Her presence had been a lifeline, a source of calm and focus in a world that seemed designed to challenge them at every turn. Elias remembered the first night vividly. They had set up a temporary shelter beneath a cluster of towering crystalline plants. The colors shifted softly, giving the landscape an otherworldly glow. He had studied the plants carefully, noting their patterns and the tiny creatures that moved between them. It was a strange ecosystem, unlike anything he had trained for, yet he learned quickly. He made simple tools, using discarded materials from their ship and the natural resources around them. Each invention was small but crucial, devices to purify water, signal their position safely, or create light without attracting unwanted attention. The princess watched him at first with curiosity, then with cautious admiration. She had knowledge of survival herself, but Elia's human methods were creative in ways that surprised her. They shared ideas late into the night, trading strategies in low tones while the stars glimmered above them. Sometimes she would sketch patterns in the sand, showing how certain creatures moved or how the terrain shifted with the seasons. He would study them, adjusting his designs and plans accordingly. They complemented each other seamlessly, forming a partnership born out of necessity and strengthened by respect. As days turned into weeks, they faced numerous challenges. Food was scarce, and they had to observe the habits of local wildlife to gather enough nourishment. Elias had learned to identify edible plants, while the princess understood how to safely navigate terrain traps and sudden energy currents that could disrupt movement. Every day was a lesson, and every lesson strengthened their bond. They spoke little of home. Survival required focus, but sometimes, in quiet moments, they shared stories. Elias described human cities, rivers, and mountains, while the princess recounted her life in the palace, her training, and her visions for her people. They discovered that despite differences, their hopes and fears were remarkably similar. One night under the twin moons of the sector, they encountered a particularly tricky situation. A sudden storm swept through the crystalline plains, sending gusts of charged wind that could disrupt both movement and energy devices. They had little shelter, and the environment seemed intent on testing their resolve. Elias quickly scanned the area, his eyes catching the faint shimmer of hollowed rock formations. He guided the princess there, carefully checking each step. Inside, they huddled together, using makeshift barriers to protect themselves from the wind. "You're remarkably calm," the princess said, her voice soft. "Most humans would panic in a storm like this. And it's easier when you're not facing it alone." And he, in turn, had learned to see the subtle signs in the environment she noticed, signs a human might have overlooked. Their partnership was not just survival, it was growth, adaptation, and understanding. During one particularly harsh day, they encountered a field of floating crystal spheres. The spheres pulsed softly, and touching them could cause disorientation. Elias observed their movements and patterns carefully. The princess, studying the formations, suggested timing their steps with the gentle pulses. Together, they moved slowly and deliberately, Elias guiding her when necessary, the princess advising him when her instincts noticed something he had not. After several tense moments, they crossed the field without mishap. Elias grinned, feeling a surge of accomplishment. See, strategy and patience. At night under the alien sky, they would sit quietly, talking about what awaited them at home, about dreams of the future, and about the importance of perseverance. Elias spoke of humanity's potential, of the ingenuity and adaptability of his people. The princess listened intently, often reflecting on how humans could approach problems differently from her own species. She admired his optimism, his patience, and his willingness to see solutions rather than obstacles. They also faced moral choices. Once, they found a small alien community struggling to survive in a ravaged valley. The princess wanted to help them, but resources were limited. Elias suggested a solution that allowed them to provide aid without endangering their own survival. They built simple devices that harvested water efficiently, shared knowledge of shelter construction, and helped the community adapt to local conditions. This moment showed them both the importance of thinking creatively and compassionately, traits that transcended species boundaries. Weeks passed, and their bond deepened. The princess came to rely on Elias not just for his skills, but for his judgment and calmness under pressure. Elias admired her courage, intelligence, and foresight. Together, they had created a small system of understanding, a miniature society of two, where survival, learning, and mutual respect ruled above fear or doubt. It was a partnership that neither of them had expected, but both had embraced wholeheartedly. Finally, the day came when they could leave the sector. They had mapped a safe path, avoided remaining hazards, and prepared for the journey back to friendly space. The princess and Elias worked together to signal their position to the fleet, using a combination of alien and human methods. The rescue, when it arrived, was seamless, thanks in no small part to the careful planning they had done. They emerged not only alive but stronger, their skills honed, their trust unshakable. Returning to Orlaia Prime was surreal. The bustling port, the crowds, and the city's bright towers seemed almost unreal after the stark, alien wilderness they had navigated. Yet Elias felt pride. He had survived, and he had helped someone he respected and admired survive as well. He had proven not just to the princess, but to himself, that humanity could endure, adapt, and thrive in ways others might not expect. The council members on Orlaia Prime were eager to hear their story. The princess began to recount it carefully, emphasizing the lessons learned and the skills acquired, while Elias filled in the details of strategy, observation, and the creative problem-solving that had guided them. Together, their narrative was not one of hardship alone, but of growth, learning, and cooperation. They showed that humans could rise to challenges, not through violence or domination, but through intelligence, empathy, and persistence. Some council members remained skeptical, questioning whether humans could maintain such calm under future threats. Elias responded with clarity. Humans may be underestimated, but we learn quickly. We adapt, we cooperate, and we strive to improve. We are capable of much more than simple assumptions suggest. And when we work together with others, we can achieve what might seem impossible. That is the lesson we bring back. As the council deliberated, Elias and the princess stood together, watching the suns dip low on the horizon of Orlaia Prime. They did not need to speak. The silence between them carried understanding, respect, and a shared sense of accomplishment. They had survived a sector no one expected them to endure, had learned from each other, and had returned to tell the story. Their example, their partnership, would inspire others to look beyond old prejudices and assumptions. Elias thought about the challenges ahead. He knew that proving humans' value in the galaxy would not end with survival stories. There would be tests, skepticism, and obstacles to overcome. Yet he also knew that they had already begun to change minds. The princess's support, her recognition of human ingenuity and perseverance, was a powerful statement. Together, they had not only survived, they had demonstrated the potential of humanity to shine. The crowd outside the council hall continued to gather, sensing the importance of the moment. Citizens and travelers from various worlds discussed quietly, speculating about the story and imagining what a partnership between humans and aliens could mean for the future. Children stared up at the stars, inspired by the example of courage, intelligence, and cooperation. Elias glanced at the princess. "We did more than survive," he said softly. "We proved something. We showed that humans can rise not by force, but through intelligence, understanding, and heart." The city's lights began to glow, reflecting off the glass towers and bustling streets. It was a new day approaching, filled with possibility. And for Elias and the princess, it was only the beginning of a journey that would redefine how humans were seen in the galaxy. The halls of Orlaia Prime's council palace were alive with activity, though the air carried a quiet tension. Delegates from various alien species had gathered to witness the return of the princess and her human companion. Some were skeptical, others intrigued, and a few seemed genuinely inspired by the tale of survival and cooperation that had already begun to spread through the city. It was a rare moment when the galaxy paused to watch and listen. The princess walked beside Elias, her steps measured, her posture regal yet approachable. She had learned much in the sector, not only about survival but about diplomacy, trust, and partnership. Elias had grown too, becoming more confident in his abilities and more aware of the subtleties of alien politics. Together, they moved as a team, presenting a living example of what collaboration between species could achieve. Inside the Grand Council chamber, the Queen sat at the center, her presence commanding attention. She had always been a symbol of strength and wisdom, and now her daughter stood before her, accompanied by a human who had proven himself in ways no one had anticipated. Delegates murmured, some whispering their doubts, others nodding slowly as they absorbed the significance of what was happening. The princess stepped forward and addressed the chamber. "We have returned not only as survivors, but as witnesses to what is possible when trust and cooperation guide our actions. Captain Elia's reign has shown that humans, when given the opportunity, can rise to meet challenges with creativity, intelligence, and empathy. Our journey was difficult, but we thrived because we worked together, learning from each other every day. Your Highness, your council, I speak not as a conqueror or a stranger, but as someone who has seen the value of partnership firsthand. Humans are often underestimated, and we are sometimes doubted, but we are capable of understanding, adapting, and contributing in meaningful ways. The princess and I faced challenges that seemed impossible, yet we endured, and we did so by trusting one another and respecting each other's strengths. It was clear that this partnership was not superficial. It was built on shared experiences, lessons learned, and a deep mutual respect. One delegate, a tall being with iridescent skin that shifted in color, raised a question. "Captain Rain, the humans are young among galactic civilizations. How can we be sure that your species is prepared to engage responsibly with other worlds? These qualities allow us to contribute meaningfully, even in complex and challenging situations. Humans are not just capable, they are valuable partners." The example of Elias and the princess was powerful. It demonstrated, not by theory but by reality, that humans could shine when trust, respect, and collaboration guided their actions. The Queen watched her daughter and the human closely. She had spent her life navigating the complex politics of multiple species, negotiating alliances, and ensuring the survival of her people. And yet she had never seen such a clear example of cooperation that transcended species. The bond between her daughter and Elias was genuine, forged in adversity and strengthened by trust. It was a model not just for humans, but for all civilizations. Outside the council chamber, the citizens of Orcs Prime watched the proceedings with keen interest. News had spread quickly, and crowds had gathered in public spaces, listening to translated broadcasts and discussing the events. Children pointed excitedly at screens displaying the princess and Elias, while adults debated what the story could mean for the future. The idea that humans could be more than outsiders, more than observers, and could actively contribute to galactic affairs began to take root. Inside, the princess and Elias began demonstrating practical lessons from their experience. She held up a simple device that Elias had created during their survival in the sector, an adaptive water purifier made from local materials and ship components. "This device," she explained, "allowed us to survive in a region where resources were scarce. It is a simple example of ingenuity and problem-solving, qualities humans possess in abundance. This is the essence of partnership, seeing potential, respecting knowledge, and combining skills." I taught him to observe carefully and understand the nuances of this world. We spoke openly, shared knowledge, and learned to anticipate each other's needs. Understanding is not automatic. It is earned through patience, respect, and collaboration. That is what we did together, and that is what we can continue to do for the galaxy. This was not a story of conquest or domination. It was a story of intelligence, empathy, and courage, a true example of HFY in action. The princess continued, "We did not seek glory. We sought survival, understanding, and the opportunity to return to our people safely. In doing so, we discovered that cooperation is stronger than fear, understanding stronger than prejudice, and perseverance stronger than doubt. We ask that our experience serve as an example. Humans are capable, intelligent, and worthy of trust." Trust is not given lightly, but it can be earned through action and integrity. Captain Rain, your presence here demonstrates not only survival but the potential of your species. The Council will take this into account, and your efforts will be remembered. Delegates began nodding, acknowledging the truth of what had been said. The young, curious members of the Council looked at Elias with new interest, while the elders, though cautious, could not ignore the evidence of human capability displayed before them. After the formal session, the princess and Elias walked through the palace gardens, a quiet space filled with alien flora that glowed softly under the twilight. It was a moment of reflection, away from the formalities of the council chamber. "You did well," the princess said quietly, glancing at Elias. "You made them listen. Your presence made the difference. Humans are often underestimated, but when someone of your stature trusts them, it shows what is possible." It was one thing to survive the hostile sector together. It was another to inspire others through their example. He realized that HFY was not just about human ingenuity. It was about humanity's ability to learn, to adapt, and to inspire others without dominance or force. As night settled over Aurelia Prime, the city's lights reflected across the water canals that ran through the palace gardens. Citizens watched the palace in awe, inspired by the idea that humans could play a meaningful role in galactic affairs. Traders and scholars discussed strategies, diplomats reconsidered assumptions, and children dreamed of adventures across the stars. In the quiet of the garden, the princess and Elias made plans for the future. There would be more challenges, more opportunities to demonstrate the value of human ingenuity and cooperation, but they were ready. Together they had survived, learned, and now they would help others see the potential that humans brought to the galaxy. Elias looked at the princess. "This is just the beginning," he said softly. "Our story can change minds, yes, but more importantly, it can show that cooperation, trust, and understanding can create a better galaxy for everyone. Now it is time for others to see it too." The partnership of a human and the alien princess had sparked a new beginning, one that would inspire generations to come. And so, under the alien sky of Aurelia Prime, the seeds of understanding and cooperation were planted. The HFY spirit shone brightly, not in weapons or war, but in ingenuity, courage, and the simple truth that humans, when given the opportunity, could rise to meet any challenge and shine among the stars. The city of Aurelia Prime shone like a beacon under the twin suns, welcoming a new era that no one could ignore. Word of the princess's return, and of the human who had stood beside her, had spread across the galaxy. Traders and travelers spoke in hushed, excited tones about the unprecedented partnership. Scholars debated its implications, children dreamed of adventures, and diplomats began to see humans in a new light. Elias and the princess had done more than survive. They had begun to reshape the galaxy's perception of humanity. Inside the Grand Council chamber, the atmosphere was unusually electric. Delegates from distant worlds had gathered once more. This session was not just about the princess's return. It was about building the first steps of interstellar cooperation that included humans. Representatives from alien civilizations, many of whom had been wary or doubtful, were curious to see what this human-alien team could achieve. The princess and Elias entered together, walking with confidence that came from months of shared experience. The council members watched them carefully. Some leaned forward, intrigued, while others maintained cautious expressions, their centuries of tradition giving way to curiosity. Elias could feel the weight of their attention, but he did not falter. He knew that this was the moment to demonstrate that humans could inspire, lead, and collaborate without fear or coercion. "Your Majesties," the princess began, her voice calm and commanding, "we have returned to share what we have learned, not just for ourselves, but for all who inhabit this galaxy. Our journey through the hostile sector showed that survival is not about strength alone, but about observation, understanding, and cooperation. Captain Elias Rain has shown, through his actions and judgment, that humans possess qualities that can benefit all species. We learn quickly, and we strive to understand those around us. We do not claim superiority, but we offer partnership. Together, we can solve challenges that neither species could face alone." Humans had been observers for centuries, often ignored in interstellar affairs, yet here was a living example that demanded recognition. Elias' voice was steady, filled with sincerity, and the princess's presence reinforced his words. One elder delegate, a being with shimmering wings and luminous eyes, spoke slowly. Humans are young among the stars. How can we trust them to act responsibly, without ego or recklessness? We are not perfect, but we strive to learn, to adapt, and to contribute meaningfully. Together, we offer an example that trust, understanding, and mutual respect can overcome prejudice and doubt. The human before them was not a threat. He was a partner, an example of what could be accomplished when species set aside fear and embraced cooperation. Outside the council, Orlia Prime was alive with celebration. Citizens lined the streets, waving at the palace as drones broadcasted live feeds. Traders paused their business to watch, and scholars debated eagerly. News of the princess and her human companion's story had inspired hope and curiosity throughout the city. Children played games imagining themselves as explorers and diplomats, humans and aliens working side by side across the stars. Inside, the princess and Elias moved through the palace gardens, a quiet space filled with alien flora that glowed gently under the twin moons. It was their moment to reflect, away from the formalities and expectations. "You've done more than I could have imagined," the princess said softly, glancing at Elias. "The council is beginning to see what I saw all along, that humans have qualities that matter, qualities that can inspire change. We've shown that humans can rise, not through power or dominance, but through intelligence, creativity, and collaboration. That is what HFY truly means, not conquering, but rising to meet challenges and proving our worth through action. We have demonstrated that understanding, trust, and mutual respect can change minds, and perhaps even hearts." The queen, seated in her regal chamber, looked upon them with a mixture of pride and curiosity. "You have exceeded expectations," the queen said, her voice calm but firm. "Your actions have not only ensured your survival, but also inspired our people. Humans are often underestimated, yet your presence here proves that assumptions can be wrong. I want the council to formally recognize your partnership and the lessons it represents. Captain Rain, you will be recognized as an honorary guardian of our realm. Your actions have not only proven your worth, but have also paved the way for humans to be seen in a new light throughout the galaxy. I will continue to serve and to demonstrate what humans can contribute, not for glory, but for partnership and progress. It is not the strength of your species alone, but the values you bring, ingenuity, cooperation, and integrity, that will inspire trust and respect." The princess stood beside him, offering support and validation. Together, they represented a new model for interstellar relations, one where humans were not observers but partners, capable of inspiring trust and contributing meaningfully. The city outside erupted in celebration. Citizens waved banners, children played, and the marketplace buzzed with excitement. Stories of the human and the princess were shared widely, inspiring hope and curiosity. Across Orlia Prime, humans and aliens alike began to envision a future where cooperation and mutual respect could bridge even the widest gaps. Elias and the princess walked through the plaza, greeting citizens and dignitaries. People approached with questions, stories, and admiration. Traders offered small gifts, children asked questions with wide-eyed wonder, and scholars debated the potential of human-alien collaboration. Every interaction reinforced the idea that humans could rise to challenges with intelligence, creativity, and heart. The princess paused near a fountain that reflected the city lights. "This is what we fought for in a way. Not just survival, but understanding. Not just safety, but hope. Humans and aliens together can achieve more than either could alone. Our partnership, our example, can inspire others to work together, to respect each other, and to rise above fear and prejudice." The partnership of a human and the alien princess had sparked a new understanding, showing that intelligence, courage, and empathy could transcend species and distance. Elias reflected on the journey. From the hostile sector to the council chamber, from survival to inspiration, he had learned that HFY was more than a statement of human achievement. It was a philosophy. It was about rising to challenges with creativity, integrity, and heart. It was about showing that humans could contribute meaningfully, not through force, but through ingenuity, compassion, and partnership. The princess placed a hand on his shoulder. "The galaxy will remember this, not just the story of our survival, but the lesson it carries. Humans are not just capable, they can inspire, teach, and lead in ways that matter." Scholars and strategists worked alongside each other, sharing knowledge, exploring new methods and building partnerships that had once seemed impossible. Diplomatic channels opened, trade agreements flourished, and educational exchanges began. The galaxy was changing, and humanity was finally recognized as a capable and valuable participant. The Princess and Elias continued their work, not seeking personal recognition but focusing on the broader mission, building trust, demonstrating capability, and inspiring cooperation. Their journey had started in survival, but it had grown into something much larger, a model of hope, ingenuity, and HFY spirit that would endure for generations. And so, under the twin moons of Aurelia Prime, humanity's potential shone brightly, not through domination or power, but through courage, creativity, and partnership. Elias and the princess stood together, a symbol of what was possible when species worked side by side, and a promise that the galaxy could become a place where understanding and cooperation overcame fear and doubt. The story of the alien princess and the human at her side would be told for years to come, a story of survival, trust, and the undeniable rise of humanity among the stars. And in every retelling, the message would remain clear. Humans could rise, humans could shine, and when they did, the galaxy was richer for it.